Hardest things to do with a brand is figure out how much is a brand worth. Like, how much is the Coca-Cola brand worth? How do you equate that to dollars and cents? And it obviously has value, but how much value? And the reason why it's so difficult is it's an intangible asset. However, these things are important for mergers and acquisitions, internal funding and budgeting. And so the common approaches I use to figure out how much is a brand worth is first, how much would it cost me if I wanted to reproduce it? Are there comparables, comps in the market that I can use? And then there are a number of financial approaches that you can figure out. And so there are financial approaches or like multipliers or something like that. And no, I don't expect you to remember that. But again, a lot of this is, if you ever want to look it up, you can remember that it was in a slide. So in terms of reproducing a brand equity, what are the strengths of my brand? Is it in differentiation? Is it in my esteem? My association to a category? And so you could do some game theory here. You can measure the outcomes of brand equity, and that's what's the price elasticity associated with this brand versus an industry average or something like that. Here's the income procedure. I'm not really going to go through it, but what they do is they actually figure out the operating income for a branded and unbranded product and take the difference of the two. And so there are a lot of models out there to do this. And here's the problem. They gave the exact same parameters to 7 different models, and as you can see, there's a 450% difference between them all. And so this is just a very difficult thing. But at the end of the day, your business is still about your growth and your trends and your shares of hearts and mind. And so those are the things they look at. Now, here's an exercise you could go through by yourself. Who's a better brand, Instagram or Twitter? Uber versus Lyft, EA versus Nintendo. There are a lot of unicorns out there. The question is, do these unicorns, and they have billion-dollar valuations, are they going to be around in 10 years? And so you just don't know. Udacity will probably be around in 10 years. A lot of people use their products. The Honest Company has gotten pretty good foothold. They're a company that's going to last the rest of these. Who knows? Does brand matter? I mean, look at all the dumb things that Uber has done, whether it's insulting women or campaigning in municipalities and ending up losing elections and things like that. They're backstabbing their own people by supporting driverless cars. But still, people use Uber. So it brings up the question, does brand matter? And what it comes down to is the biggest value of brand right now is basically differentiation and also gaining awareness for your product so people can learn about your product much more quickly. And typically that's done today with new products through digital means. But the question is can you do damage to yourself? And so what it comes down to is, now that you know the phase growth of your brand, you could put this on a grid and compare it to your 4 Ps and make sure, does your 4 Ps support each phase of the brand? The other thing about your company, and this is a big problem with startups, and that's that you keep identifying yourself with your product, whether you're a product or a company. An example is the product Spanx. Yeah, the company's called Spanx, but all you think is a product and not the company. Is this good or bad branding? This is actually... Now, the thing is, when you look at the picture behind it, you see this elegant map with these old uh, artifacts like the magnifying glass, a pencil, an old film camera. Very elegant. And yet it says hate bullshit. Is that good or bad branding? I consider it to be bad branding because you're trying to show yourself being elegant and hip and edgy at the same time. And the thing is, the hip and edgy borders on trying to be subversive. And subversive does not go with classical. Two different things. And so I don't think this is a good piece of branding. I'll leave this to you. Here's match the brand with the game. With the product, I mean. And so the thing is, a brand also has colors associated with it. And so I'll leave it to you to connect. And there are three aspects here. The company, what they use for branding, the things on their website, and finally, how do they go about selling? Again, all three pieces need to be consistent. And so I'll put that in the lecture. And so you have to make sure that in branding, finally, that you have the right context. Everything's aligned. Your positioning relates the way I position, the mind space I want to be in my customer, defines my branding. My branding subsequently defines how I communicate. And so my communication basically speaks for my positioning. So they all have to go together. So wrapping up, our brand is an expression of a value. Technically, it could be a name, a term, a symbol. Brand equity is why we pay more, and it's all based on DREK or DREK. I don't think they call it DREK, but that's what it spells. Anyway, if I try to expand my brand to other areas, I have to be careful. Does it really apply? And in terms of trying to come up with the value for a brand, it's very difficult. As you can see, there's no one good way of doing it.